So here is a family favorite breakfast that I like to make sometimes on a Saturday morning. My family just loves it. They start circling me in the kitchen waiting on those biscuits to come out of the oven. And I want to show you step by step how I like to make my biscuits. Now these are really soft and pillowy on the inside, a little bit crispy on the outside, and just perfect for sausage gravy. So here are the ingredients. You are welcome to jot them down. They'll also be below the video if you'd like to print them out. And as always, you can do a screenshot with your device. Now I am using a flour which is commonly found in the South. It's called White Lily self-rising flour, but if you live somewhere you cannot find this kind of flour, I would suggest using 1 cup of just a regular self-rising flour along with 1 cup of a cake flour, and then add a teaspoon of baking powder to that. Okay, in addition to the other teaspoon we're going to add to the recipe. And then the gravy, I like to use a good breakfast sausage. I pick mine up at a local farm here, but I also just think a good breakfast sausage, maybe like a sage sausage, is really good for your sausage gravy. So I'll start by sifting the flour, and I just want to make sure it's nice and light and airy and no lumps. And then we'll put in 1 teaspoon of the baking powder, and now I'll chip in the unsalted butter along with 2 heaping tablespoons of shortening and 2 heaping tablespoons of sour cream. And then with my pastry blender, I just want to go in here and work it until it resembles a nice coarse mixture of all different little lumps. We want some small lumps and some big lumps in here, and I don't use my fingers because I don't want to warm up that butter or the sour cream or anything in here. I want to keep it nice and cold, so we'll just give it a little chop until it looks about like this. So I want to keep this mixture nice and cold, so I popped it in my freezer while I patted up my sausage and got that browning on my stove. And I patted up about 6 sausage patties, and I reserved some for my gravies. And I also preheated my oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I pulled my flour mixture right out of the freezer, and I can begin to add my buttermilk. I like to use seal test buttermilk, which is fat-free. Not that it matters at this point because we have so much fat in here. And I'll just slowly incorporate it into the flour mixture. Wherever I see that there's a little dry patch of flour, I'll just pour a little milk on there, and this is going to be a nice sticky, tacky mixture when I'm done with it. And I'm just using my wooden spoon. Again, I don't want to use my hands because it'll warm it up as we start to mix it. So this mixture looks really good, and now I can put it on my board. So my mixture is, like I said, a little bit wet and tacky because I can always add more flour to it as I work it, and so that works out for me. That's how I like to do it. Some people have a real dry mixture and they work it on their board, but I find that this is easy for me to do, and it keeps it from being overworked. So I'll just spoon it right out here onto my flour mixture, and using my knife keep my spoon and everything nice and clean. And then on top I'll put a little bit more flour, and I just want to press it out until it looks like a nice little dough. Just gently press it, and then I'll turn it with my pastry scraper and put a little more flour on it. My board is kind of wet from the dough, so I keep it floured. And now I want to press it out with my hands just a little bit more. You know, we don't need to roll these out because we want to keep them nice and light and soft in the middle. And so I'll take my pastry scraper and go ahead and fold it over in half, and then do it again with the pastry scraper. And I do this probably 5 or 6 times. Just fold it over and flour, and fold it over and then flour it until I get a nice rectangular shape. I want to do a rectangular shape so that I can get about 6 biscuits out of here, which is fine. We're a family of 4. I only eat 1, and I give the rest to all the boys, so they can fight for the 5 between the rest of them. And they're really big, so that's plenty really. And now I have it pressed out to almost a rectangular shape, and I just want to see if my cutter will give me 6 biscuits. If it doesn't, I press on it gently just a little bit more in the middle so that I can get 6 biscuits. My thickness is probably about 3/4 to 1 inch thick, so they're pretty thick biscuits. And you might need to flour your cutter as you're cutting out your biscuits. Also, don't twist your cutter into the dough when you're cutting out the biscuits. That will make it harder for them to rise. So just go straight down when you're cutting them out. Use your pastry scraper just to get up underneath there if you need to. So one of our favorite parts too is just to take some of that leftover dough and I'll snuggle it in there just like a little puzzle piece, and that helps the biscuits rise up nice and tall. And then those little pieces are so good with the gravy too. And butter the top right there with some salted butter. I like to add a little salt to my melted butter. And now into the oven on the center rack, and then I set my timer for 25 minutes. And now my sausage was browning up very nicely, so I removed it to drain on a paper towel and a paper plate. And this is too much grease for my gravy. I do not like greasy gravy, so I went ahead and poured all of that out, because remember, I also had some sausage set aside for the gravy. So I want to go ahead and brown this up, and I'll get a little bit more grease out of here for the gravy. And so I probably had about a half a tablespoon of grease in here, and then I used a little bit of broth just to kind of pull up all that goodness from the bottom of the pan, and I let it reduce down for about 3 minutes till a lot of that liquid was gone and I just had some of the grease behind. And then we'll add about 2 tablespoons of the flour along with some salt, some cayenne pepper, some white pepper, and some black pepper, and then just cook that right into your flour. And we want to cook the flour for about 3 minutes. Now I noticed here I did not have enough grease, so I used just a little bit more from the grease that I had poured out earlier. And this way I don't have too greasy of a gravy, because I think when it's too greasy it's kind of slimy, and it's not a really good, I guess, consistency for gravy. So I just add a little bit with the flour. So I add about 2 tablespoons of grease to about 2 tablespoons of flour, and then I use about 1.5 cups of milk to 2 cups of milk, depending on what kind I'm using. I'm using whole milk for this. And we'll just slowly add it to that paste mixture after it's cooked for about 2 minutes. And you'll just continue to add your milk. Go ahead and taste about halfway through for salt. You want to make sure it's seasoned enough, and then just continue to add your milk, and it will thicken on the stove. And you can always add more milk if you need to thin it out. So that was ready and good to go, and I pulled my biscuits out of the oven. They were just nice and brown on top, looking really good there in this little cast iron skillet. This is just a small cast iron skillet, and nice and steaming. Like I said, these are real soft in the middle and real crispy on the outside. They're just perfect for gravy. So I like to just ladle on a lot of that gravy. I like mine a little bit runny like this, and then I just crumbled up one of those sausage patties right on top. I like to cook the sausage patties separately, because some members of my family like to have a sausage biscuit without the gravy. So there you go. I hope you're able to give this recipe a try. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know by giving me a big thumbs up, and also don't forget to check out my other recipes. I have a playlist section on my channel where there's something over there for everyone. And don't forget to click that bell off to the right of the subscribe button, and you'll receive all notifications from my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and y'all have a beautiful day.